SC, are we back? Are we back, SC?
Yes, Chair.
Prof, Doctor. Dr. De Haas. Are we ready to rock and roll?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay. Yeah. Your seat is here. Your seat is here, Chief Whip. That's where your seat is.
How much of
No, there is no problem if you want to sit at the back. Yeah. Because Chief Whip, as the Chief Whip of the majority party in Parliament, as the Chief Whip of the majority party in Parliament, when you go to any committee meeting, you remain the Chief Whip. Yeah. There is at no stage that you are not the Chief Whip. Yeah. I want us to proceed. Yeah, I'm handing over back to you.
Jay, are you still busy with Dr. Das on the last issue?
No, we're done on that issue. She made a commitment that when we come back from the break,
lunch, yeah,
we can tap from her wisdom, and I see you also want to compliment her.
You asking her?
I have asked her, and she committed that we are going to tap from her wisdom. So now, were you done with your questions, or do you still want to lead evidence?
Me,
No, I mean the SC.
Yeah, the advocate.
Well, apart from the other issue that we had about naming the
witnesses.
Witness, I did have a few more questions.
You still had few questions?
Yes, Chair.
How long does it take you to conclude those questions?
Well, it always depends also on the witness, but it shouldn't be longer than 20 minutes, half an hour.
Okay. Do you hear what the SC is saying, honorable members? The SC says in round about 20 minutes, he may be concluding leading evidence. So I want to request you to start reading yourself, because once he concludes, we may not have time to break. So if you can start preparing yourself so that once we reach that stage, you are ready to ask questions. SC, you will tell me when you are done. And I'm going to request members not to interrupt the SC because it's only 20 to 30 minutes. Thank you. I'm not going to take any point of clarity between now and the conclusion of evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. May I proceed, Honorable Chair? Thank you, Honorable members. Just, Dr. Dasa, just to recap, the reasons that you mentioned in your statement why the PKTT should be disestablished, and in fact you say should have been disestablished a while ago, you refer to at 17.1, where of your statement on page 11, it was completely unnecessary to establish the PKTT as our KZN provincial team had already made important breakthroughs in high-profile political cases. At 17.2, you refer to the structure of the PKTT, which you say is completely irregular. I make this point as I've been working with task teams which have always been set up with clear structures of command and oversight and of limited duration. At 17.3 on page 13, nor is there any good reason whatsoever for a team of detectives to focus on you put political killings in inverted commas. And this is, I asked you this earlier, they have never defined what exactly they mean by this term. And they are known to have taken dockets for which they have no mandate, such as those involving cases of alleged fraud and or gross municipal corruption, which is the mandate of the HOC, the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, as per the SAPS Act. Lastly, it's the costs is prohibitive. And those reasons, Dr. Das, they correspond also more or less with the reasons given to us by Minister Mchunu when he gave his evidence. So just a brief comment on any of them or all of them.
Only to say that I hadn't even, I skimmed through Minister Mchunu's affidavit. I skimmed through and I was particularly interested in the appendixes, the annexures, which actually have breakdowns of where they claim their successes. That was my main focus thus far. I haven't finished with it yet, but that's as far as I got. So when I put this together, it was entirely my own experience gave rise to these reasons. Particularly, one of the may or may not have got into an annexure is the stunning successes of our provincial team dealing with the carnage in Cleveland's hostel, which carried on because there's been other massacres since. So, and the fact that a lot of what they claim, I know they claim as successes, were actually virtually the evidence that was ready for prosecution was done by the provincial members who'd been, even as clearly admits, seconded to the team. That's the main thing. So, and their prohibitive expense. Quite apart from all the systemic abuses, because I have, it's true that the police do that a lot, but this is almost a modus operandi for them, this illegal seizure of phones and no regard. So yeah, I can confirm all that's my own deductions. Yeah.
Okay. Then just moving on to the prosecutor's name that you mentioned throughout, Kaba.
Yes.
You've also lodged complaints about Advocate Kaba to the National Director of Public Prosecutions.
Indeed, because lots of people, including in statements and affidavits I was sent from Gauteng about a case he's dealing with there, the Crusher case in particular, but there's a lot of affidavits there. I've spoken to 2 senior police members who say, well, he was going to be under investigation. One, I'll quote the words because you're wanting names. No, I can't quote the names of the policemen. May I explain that when I don't quote names, it's only for those reasons that, especially, I may open them up to adverse actions, as in the form of losing a job or losing their lives. And most of them are the policemen. The people whose names I don't give you are police members. So I'd just like to make that clear on record. They told me this, and they claimed that Kaba was advised to leave Gauteng, where the spotlight was getting to be on him, and come to this province. What we do know is that when he got here, Despite these allegations, he was promoted to senior public prosecutor by Mrs. Harrison. I won't go into the problems I've had with Mrs. Harrison before. So what I did last year, another policeman told me that Mr. Garber's got very powerful protection. He said, I'm trying to investigate him, but I can't let on because someone will sabotage it. These are policemen. I want to again explain, as the Honourable Chair asked me to do, that the only reason I'm not doing this is that I could not betray their trust in me. They tell me because I know that they would suffer adverse consequences if they did. That's the only reason. And I think it's policemen because, again, I mean, when the conversation came up, and please understand, I don't mind what you say about me, and I don't mind the challenges you throw out. I'm sorry if I seemed arrogant about it, but I think I was just kind of saying, no, I just can't carry on if I have to reveal names that I've given my word not to remain. Anyway, but I appreciate the work you're doing. And I also want to say, I believe that you can do some things as Parliament, especially when all the stuff's on record and you could call for an audit, for example. You can do things that you don't have those resources and investigative capacity. That's the only reason I brought the Commission into it, because you don't want to put stuff on record so that they can cover up before anyone in the Commission gets to investigate it. Okay. So, mainly police people. So I wrote, when it was clear that one complaint after the other was coming to me from Garber, and I must mention here there's an affidavit which may or may not be there, but it's become quite a famous affidavit in the media. It is the man who pulled the trigger on Sindisa Magaka. He's called Ngengwa. And Ngengwa was one of the original arrests. And the original investigations was done by the provincial team. Ngengwa, in his affidavit, says the prosecutor who took the case initially agreed that he could be a state witness. But that prosecutor, who I know to be a good prosecutor in the provincial office, was withdrawn, and Mr. Garber came in and he stopped it. The hitman, Glenn, was been chomping at the bits to make a confession for the last 5 years, I think, 6 years. And a little group of people put some money together for him to get an advocate to help him, because nobody was helping him, not his lawyers, not the prosecutor. And that is the confession is the result of that, where it specifically names Garber as obstructing justice when he wanted to confess, right? And somebody else has made an affidavit. Mr. Pillay has made an affidavit that I should have attached there also to say, and he had witnesses, because they were in the office when this happened, of one of the prosecutors that Garber was trying to get him to force his death. Okay, I've been getting all this since late last year. I wrote to the National Director of Public Prosecutions, which I've done with other cases, to contest. And I said, can you please send in an independent senior prosecutor or other advocate just to check all those dockets? These are the allegations. I started off very politely. I said, this is not fair on Mr. Garber that he gets all these allegations. He should be able to clear his name if it can be cleared. And if not, we should know. Okay. I just got the replies back all the time. The first reply was, Mrs. Harrison will check. I said, but Mrs. Harrison is the very person who appointed him to senior public prosecutor. How can we call her independent? I'm asking you to bring in somebody senior from another province. To this day, they won't do it. So that's that story. But I think in some of these cases, there's going to be a lot of corroborating evidence coming out when the cases finally get to court. But as I've said to you, tracing these cases out, there's a kind of what they call the Stalingrad option of deliberately delaying hearings. Oh, well, sorry, I'm not available. Another 6 months goes by. Okay. And in one case where Mr. Thabers said this prosecutor has got to suddenly not use those 3 days. There's a High Court judge in Pietermaritzburg called Judge Singh. She actually needs Mr. Shange. Mr. Shange is his deputy that he takes instructions from. I checked the whole High Court rolls on the Pietermaritzburg High Court. There is no case set down for 3 days. There's a Singh here and a Singh there, but no Singh running a case for 3 days. So it seemed to me that that was not quite honest. Okay.
I think I asked you. I asked you this morning when we consulted. Why haven't you lodged a complaint with IDEC?
Well, I actually didn't know that I could. Thank you for telling me.
Well, it sounds like corruption to me.
Yeah, no. That's what you
defeating the ends of justice, withdrawing cases, enrolling cases, withdrawing them, and you also say lying, because now you just look at a court roll and you see there's no judge.
No, there's at least one free day of those 3 days where no judge of Singh is presiding, according to the court roll. So, I mean, no, I will do that, and it's a very helpful suggestion because I'm actually...
Don't mention my name.
No. No, it came up in the commission, and I was told that I could approach, in the ad hoc. But I will definitely do that because I
okay. Then I just wanted to your interactions. I think we've already heard from you about Minister Mchunu, and then just the remaining two, Advocate Bakoli and Mr. Kabinde.
Yeah.
You deal with Kabinde at paragraph 27.
Yeah. I can answer that quite quickly. I mean, and there's no sort of unknown sources here. This is what I experienced personally. Mr. Kabinde, I know he was at IPID, and I don't think I dealt with him there, but I couldn't be sure because I did do quite a bit of interaction with IPID head office, but I don't remember dealing with... I remember the reports about him falling out with McBride, but that was about as much as I could remember about him. And then what happened was that after Minister Mchunu was suspended and there was a new minister... I didn't know who to send my complaints to because I do have to write a complaint about the state of policing in the province. And I asked Patricia, I mean, almost daily interaction with Patricia, almost. We deal with a lot of stuff together. And Patricia Mashali, Mrs. Mashali. And she said, oh, look, Ngabindi is the head of the office there. Try him. And I did, and I sent him a couple of things. And I got a response to say that there would be a new person who hadn't quite started. And she is, I think... She's what did I say she was called? I think she's a General Pina. Yeah. So, I mean, she's quite efficient. I sent to her and she acknowledges and says it's been sent on. That's how I dealt. Then I phoned in Ngabindi after the police, and it seems that our police were paid to go up there and do all these actions against. We have no money for a lot of resources at the moment in KZN. And our police were there operating, going into Ngabindi's home, beating his brother allegedly. So I just phoned to ask if he'd opened a case about his brother, and he said he had, and I think he said there wasn't a warrant. I didn't deal with him after that.
And just on Patricia Mashali, also raised it with you this morning, that Minister Mchunu had also referred a number of complaints, a whole bundle of complaints to the IGI, but had received a report back to say that I think it's between 70 to 80% of those complaints had no substance.
I must confess.
I'm just asking you the extent to which you do rely or have relied also on Patricia Mashali's network.
No, thank you. Yeah. A lot of the information she's given him, I followed up independently. Okay. And I think the problem, because she was adamant she'd given proof of what she'd said. And she records also for other corruption reported to her by her former husband. And that was why they'd seized her phone and they wanted this and that and the other. But on the whole, I mean, all I relied on her with this was to say, well, who can I contact there? And she knew who to contact. And I realized I actually facilitated this. Suddenly, in answer to the question there, suddenly there was a call to say we need to meet with Patricia Mashale, and I facilitated it. I said, will you meet with them? And she actually said to me, and I think her husband did too, former husband, can we trust this person? I said, well, I don't know. I think you can. I don't know. And then you must remember also, of course, that there was no Inspector General of Intelligence until I think last year. There was a hiatus between the resignation of Dr. Dindwe or the end of term of Dr. Dindwe. So I'd been interacting with an advocate in the office, not the head of the office. Then in come the new head, and I got a message to say all my queries must go to his PA. In other words, not to keep sending it to the advocate. So we're not absolutely sure whether or not the information was accurate. But normally I've checked out her stuff and verified it with people that she's reported, and I've spoken to them directly.
Then you also mentioned Advocate Piccoli. You said you met him once.
I only met him once. I knew he was the legal advisor for the minister. I think I'd heard that along the way somewhere, because I had admiration for him based on what happened some years back to him. And I heard he was in the office and acting for the minister. And then he said he was coming to Durban on business, and I met him in Professor Zulu's office because he'd arranged to meet someone who used to be a senior student of Professor Zulu's. So we combined it, but the discussion was general. He did ask me, he said, did you write these letters? Yes. He asked me for clarification, but I want to stress at no stage did he indicate that there was even a consideration of disbanding. He just asked me to verify. And then we branched off a whole lot of other stuff, including like he was shocked when I told him about the guy who planted the grenade at the university and nobody knew was working for the security police.
And then you also mentioned Lieutenant General Sabir.
Oh, now that's another interesting one. I had no contact with Sabir. I didn't much like the man because he brought one of these spurious legal actions against Patricia Mashale over a fairly trivial thing, and she wasn't even served with the papers. Anyway, by the end of January, I was deeply concerned about the fact that there was no sign of any disbandment of the task team, and I was getting more and more problems about the prosecutor. It was a combination. And I began to wonder, if they're going to be forced to disband, what's going to happen to those dockets? What have they done with the dockets? What dockets have they got? And I discussed with somebody, I think it was a lawyer or maybe even a policeman, and I honestly don't know who it was. I remember a discussion and saying, do you think I should maybe ask the one, Sabir, who's the Deputy National for Detectives, because I knew that the original structure was to report to the Deputy National of Detectives. Okay. I asked somebody who gave me his number. I sent him a message and I said, I wrote him a covering letter. And I said, I'm really concerned. Are you able to take those dockets and check them? The emails bounced back. I sent him a message and said, well, I don't think you've got the emails. He never replied to me again. So in other words, they're not even on record. As far as I know, I don't know how emails bounce back. How people get emails, because they definitely bounce back. Virtually everything I sent him was what I'd sent to Parliament and the Minister last year, just with a covering letter. I sent a copy of the letter from Minister Mchunu to say, look, this is a legal instruction. So that was my contact with Sabia. Yeah, and that was the end of it.
Can I just ask you about paragraph 33, about this alleged conflict of interest, you say, which is inherent in General Khumalo having been allowed to continue to occupy two roles. One, the project manager of PKTT, and also that of crime intelligence.
Well, there is an inherent conflict of interest. Look, these are two, let me go back to about first year sociology. These are two very separate roles. They demand separate requirements and qualifications. One is managing finance, and as I said, there were allegations that there were problems there with the PKTT. And the other, of course, the project manager one, the other one was the fact that he was in crime intelligence, which also involves approving the financial expenditure by intelligence. And I've been getting all these are first-hand contacts from police members. So again, forgive me, Chairperson, but I can't reveal the names because of this whole question of maybe endangering them, and because they know that I've said I won't reveal their identities. So that's the only reason. I think the only people I'm not naming are police members. But when I heard this I was getting messages from people I know, senior, saying there's a whole restructuring going on. And I was talking, and there was one individual member who'd been in crime intelligence for a long time, and he was saying, I don't know what to do, because there are regulations about what you pay to informants and rewards. Like if you get a big drug bust, they're supposed to get a reward. He said, I can't do that. I can only offer them 3,000 rand, and they're risking their lives. I mean, police informants are risking their lives. Some of them get killed. I said, well, I don't know. I checked with the officer of the IGR, but the new IGR wasn't there. I think I checked with the advocate there, and she said, well, he better come and tell us. And I said, but he's too scared to. I think they'll just lose their jobs if their names leak out. I don't know what happened. There was actually, I didn't go to the media. Somebody went to the media, and there was a report to the same effect. Okay, so it's finances in two positions, because the minute after General Khumalo was appointed to head crime intelligence, I was also getting from individual members of crime intelligence saying, we've got no vehicles. We thought these vehicles were bought for us. We're having to use public transport, and that's a risk to us. We don't know why we're not getting the vehicles. We think the money's going to the political killings task team. Well, I don't know. This is what I mean about a conflict of interest, two roles. So that was the first thing. He should never have been in both these positions at the same time. That's what I was saying. The other issue with him, and this is what I did know that he was on bail, and I did know that his bail conditions precluded him, Khumalo, from going to work, basically to engaging in his intelligence work. And he was talking about what had happened since he'd been given bail, which he should not have been involved in. So that's why I raised the issue of these conflict of interest, because it creates the impression maybe this is where the money's going, so there's no money for crime intelligence. I don't know. I mean, I'm asking people to, one of the things you'll see I'm asking the committee, your ad hoc to do, is to push for proper audits. The only people that can deal with this sort of complaint is the Office of the Inspector General of Intelligence. And sometimes I've got round to copying stuff to SCOPA, but I really want to push for a proper independent audit of both especially of the KwaZulu-Natal budget, because it was used up very early in the year. So this creates these perceptions that money's going to the task team because of its expenses. So that's what that was about, just to put that in.
And then just lastly, you make some suggestions, urgent actions that are required at paragraph 36.1.
Sure.
Expediting the implementation of the overdue legislation to restore civilian oversight to the intelligence services, including financial independence and competent staffing at the Office of the IGI. In 36.2, an immediate independent audit of the KZN policing budget and of all PKTT expenditure. And in 3, there must, without delay, be an audit of all the guns which have been in the hands of the PKTT. You want to expand?
Yeah, I do. I would like to, because look, I was very close to what was happening in July 2021. I even had former students phoning me in panic. And sending messages on and telling me what was happening in Phoenix, and all sorts of, even police were sending me messages about what was happening and the role of private security companies in Phoenix. So I knew that, I've written up a chapter in it in a book on protest, but I'd read through, for example, the report by the committee chaired by Dr. Sidney Mufamadi, and that was in 2018, about restoring civilian oversight to the intelligence services. And he said it was urgent. Now, I think it's common knowledge that finally that legislation was passed last year. That is, how many years now? 6 years after it was deemed urgent, and it was only enacted this year. And there's all sorts of, in a separate annexure, I've just done a memorandum about the security situation in KwaZulu-Natal. You see, after July 21, I thought there might be a focus on getting better intelligence, because from more than one senior person, including a senior minister at the time, that after Jacob Zuma was arrested, nothing was coming through from KwaZulu-Natal. Mchunu was nowhere to be found. Even his phone was off. One minister went off. One minister was very irate. She just couldn't understand how the man didn't have his phone on when the province was burning. Anyway, I thought we might pay attention to intelligence, but it's actually deteriorated from what the members tell me. One member I spoke, who was a long-time member, a couple of weeks ago, said, well, it's virtually collapsed in KwaZulu-Natal. So I think there's an urgency here, and that brings me to the guns, because what I forgot to mention is, in one of the early reports from Minister Clearly, one of the very few, he was talking about, we've made all these arrests for guns and illegal guns and dockets and guns, and they were a range of very dangerous guns. But a senior provincial detective said, well, what happened is that actually, and again, as I said, I'm not mentioning these names because they are police members, and it would at least lose them their jobs, and it might even get them killed, some of them that are doing dangerous work right now. And he said to me, what happened is that apparently, and it's not confidential, the task team went to the different stations in the province where there were illegal guns taken in, and they took the dockets and they took the guns. That's why this massive amount of information, see how well the task team is doing. Someone told me along the way, I think it was a prosecutor, who was also very concerned about it, said, but you know, they say they do their own ballistics. Well, I mean, what does that mean? They are police members. You've got to use police ballistics. So I would really like, I mean, the crime problem in KwaZulu-Natal is out of control at the moment. And we've got to deal with the gun problem. And I think if Parliament could press for some sort of audit of all the guns that have been in the hands, well, even the guns in the hands of the police. I mean, because they do go missing from the police. I know that from firsthand. But I don't know where all these guns are. What happened to them? Were people actually convicted? What happened to the guns? Were they bona fide police ballistics people that tested them? It's unknown. I think an audit of the guns by, I don't know by who, but there must be some way of doing it. These are things that, what I said to you earlier, you know, the things Parliament can do. The Madlange Commission will take a long time to get round to doing investigations, but Parliament can do things as soon as it's reached its ad hoc conclusions.
Thank you. Thank you.
And there's longer term stuff. Yeah. You know, I, as a social scientist, am very concerned about a creeping culture of secrecy. I gave evidence here against the secrecy bill years ago. But there's a creeping culture of secrecy. We've had problems even getting PIA applications without having to go to court. And there's an increasing use of slap suits, defamation actions by the police at our expense, I think, to try and stop people telling the truth, basically. I mean, just last week we were saying that they're doing this against people who are also trying to protect land rights of Indigenous people. So, I mean, that is longer term. We've got to expedite that legislation. The other longer term thing, and again, a policeman phoned me just before I came and said, look, we are among ourselves, we're talking. He's a retired senior man. And we've decided we've got to restructure the police. I said, yeah, I've said that. We have to restructure. And these are longer term things. But at the same time, we have to keep it in mind. I mean, there's a national development plan that's got some good ideas.
Okay, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Dan. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Are you done?
Thank you.
Hope so.
Okay. We are now going to the next session, Doctor, where we are going to allow these honorable members of Parliament to ask you questions.